Welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting for Tuesday, September 28th, 2021. And like we kick off every meeting, we always salute the flag, and typically the board kicks off saluting the flag. Tonight, it's a very special night. We have the VFW Post 8164 in the house. So I would ask if we all stand and have the VFW Post 8164, please kick off the Pledge of Allegiance with us.
And salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right.
Okay, thank you. Okay, for housekeeping purposes, Mr. Todd Johnson will not be with us tonight again, so we'll note that for the record. So that brings us to our first scheduled item, 7:05, Strong Water Farm one-day entertainment and liquor application. Do we have a representative? Please. And what we'll do is, first we'll do a quick introduction, please, for the record.
I'm Maria Antonioni. I'm the Executive Director for Strong Water Farm.
Okay, very good. And because this is a public hearing, that means the abutters get notified. What we'll do is we'll open a public hearing, and we'll see what you're seeking this evening. We'll discuss on the board. We'll open up to the residents. We'll close the public hearing, come back to the board. Fair enough?
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the reading of the public hearing.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? Okay, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. So, okay, what are we looking to do, Maria?
So this is an actual one-day entertainment and one-day special liquor license. We are a nonprofit, so this is a fundraiser/friendraiser. All proceeds benefit the programs of Strong Water Farm, which are there to support children and adults with cognitive, physical, and emotional challenges in their life. So the event is, we have so this is an annual event, one of our...
Maria, just maybe a little closer to the mic, please.
Sure,
Thank
sure.
you.
So this is an annual event. This is our third annual, except for last year. We have live country music. We have local businesses that have bought tables to sell their wares. And we have... blanking here, but we have hay rides and activities for children, all free of cost, just the cost to come onto the property and enjoy the beautiful paddocks, meet the horses, talk to our staff. It's really just about getting the word out there that we're there.
Okay, very good. Okay, I'll open it up to the board for comment. I can say, I know you had this in the past, and I've heard it's a wonderful event. Hopefully this year we can attend. And just for the audience and the residents, when is it, Maria?
It is October 3rd, this coming Sunday, from 12 to 4.
Okay, very good. Okay, at this point, let's open it up to the board for questions. Ms. Wellman?
I don't have any questions. I received the notification in the mail, so I look forward to your event. I don't know if I'll be able to go or not, but I know that you've done it in the past and you have an outstanding organization, so thank you. I have no questions. All of the paperwork is in order. All of your insurance, certificates of insurance are in order, so those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Very good. How about Ms. Stronach?
I do not have any questions. Your application was very thorough. I appreciate that. I would like to say that I have attended this event. It is quite a spectacular event. Great venue for it. And I would also like to note that I know that our police chief and some of our first responders have also made good use of your facility. So I want to thank you for that as well. And I think your organization is tremendous and appreciate your work. And please pass that along to the remainder of your board.
I will. Thank you very much.
Very good. How about Mr. Mackey?
No questions, Mr. Chairman, and I wish you guys another successful event.
Thank you.
Very good. I'll just use one word, awesome. It really is a
Okay.
staple of the community, and you hear so many good things coming out of your organization, and that facility puts smiles on people's faces, and what's better than that? So I thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So it's very commendable. So at this point, it is a public hearing, so at this point, are there any residents that'd like to speak? Okay. Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved, Mr.
I
Chairman.
have a motion and I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So let's bring it back to the board. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the one-day entertainment and liquor license application for Strongwater Farm for the event as presented on October 3rd, 2021.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, it has a 4-0. Thank you very much, Maria, and good luck.
Thank you very
Very
much.
good.
I hope to
See
see
you
you there.
Sunday.
Yeah, see you Sunday.
Thanks again. All right. All right, 7:05, so our next business. Again, these are two very, very good things back to back. You know, usually we're, sometimes it's not this easy, but this one's another wonderful, a wonderful schedule item. So we have the Tewksbury Veterans of Foreign War, better known as the VFW. This is the 75th anniversary of Tewksbury, which is amazing. I don't think too many communities can say that about their VFW, so we're very lucky and happy to have several members of the VFW. So at this time, I'd like to call up Doug and Vinny, please. And I know we have many in attendance, but I would like to call up both Commander of the State and the Commander of the Tewksbury VFW, please. You come right up and... Yep, you're welcome, man.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. So how about this? I figured this is a good time to get some advertisement. I know sometimes, what's this good saying? You're trying to drum up sometimes for business to get newer veterans in, into the mix and sometimes grow within the community. So I'll pause there, and you want to maybe just introduce yourselves and tell us a little about your particular post?
Sure. Do you want to do the presentation? Okay. My name's Vinny Oliva. I am the post commander of post 8164. A little bit of history of the post. The Tewksbury Post 8164 was chartered by the National Organization in August 1946. There were 15 names on the charter. The original meeting place was the town hall. Later, they moved down to the grove off Shawsheen Street, known as Sullivan Village. As in all new organizations, there was a great deal of enthusiasm from the new members, and much was accomplished in those early years. Unfortunately, the early records of the post were not passed down, and the names of the commanders are not known. Of the original names on the charter, only one comrade is still a member. The early 50s began with an uncountable decline in the post. A few stalwart members managed to hold it together until new and vigorous leadership started it once more on the road upward. In 1962, the post purchased a property on the corner of St. Mary's Road and Vernon Street, which was formerly St. Mary's Church. The land area approximately 1 1/4 acres. In 1965, the post purchased an additional acre and a quarter from the Friend Lumber Company. Following the purchase of the former St. Mary's Church, the Tewksbury Post became incorporated, and the auxiliary was chartered in 1963. Steady progress has been noted in all areas of activity since that time. In 1963, there were 54 members. 1964, the membership increased to 75. The same was recorded in 1965, and in 1966, it jumped to 101. 1967 was the banner year for membership in the Post when it roared to 203. Top honors from county and departments were collected. Last year, now this is going back to 1970 something. Last year, we closed our membership drive at 193. The record of achievement in community service and related activities, which is the purpose of the Veterans of Foreign Wars, would be too long to record at this time. Be assured, however, your post has served with veterans, their widows and orphans in the community with vigor and dedication over the years, and we shall continue to do so. The mission of the VFW is to foster camaraderie among the United States veterans of overseas conflicts, to serve our veterans, the military, and our communities, to advocate on behalf of all veterans. Our vision is to ensure that veterans are respected for their service, always receive their earned entitlements, and are recognized for the sacrifices they and their loved ones have made on behalf of this great country. Since the post was formed, its post members and auxiliary have been involved in the community with various VFW programs, such as our Patriot Pen and the Voice of Democracy scholarships. Recognition of our local fire department, police department, EMTs, Boy Scouts, and Teacher of the Year awards. You will find us at the annual Memorial Day ceremony and participating in the Memorial Day Parade marching down Main Street. You will find us at the 4th of July festivities at Livingston Park. You will find us at the 911 Memorial standing next to the police and fire departments. You will find us in front of the town hall during the Christmas lighting on the Commons. You will find us in front of market baskets in Walmart during our Buddy Poppy drive every Memorial Day and Veterans Day weekends. We continue to support our food pantry and distribute food for vets to all local veterans and beyond during the pandemic. We work closely with our VSO and was there and are there whenever she calls for assistance. We offer our honor guard to begin town meetings when called upon. Members volunteer countless hours outside the community at the Bedford VA Hospital, Massachusetts Military Support Foundation, Operation Backpack, the Salute to Military Golf Association, and much more. This year, amid the pandemic, the VFW 8164 received All-American Service Award status. All-American status is designed to recognize outstanding units and is based on participation in the VFW programs. In closing, membership is key to our success. We now look to our Persian Gulf, Iraq, and Afghanistan veterans to join the VFW and its auxiliary to lead us into the future for the next 75 years. We can be reached at 978-284-9880 or on our website, vfw8164.org. It's not about us, but the men and women who came back from World War II and founded the Post. We continue to carry the torch. We honor the dead, serving the living. We will have our 75th anniversary celebration on Veterans Day, November 11th. Time and place is to be determined. Thank you. May God bless you, and may God bless America.
Come on, stand up. We got to give it. Awesome. Thank you very much, Commander. Commander.
Okay, Doug Wood, for those who don't know me, I'm Doug Wood. I am the state commander for the Department of Massachusetts. I belong to Post 6539 in Westford, which is District 15, which 8164 is also part of District 15. We have the unique three of our last four state commanders have all come out of District 15. I'm the third one. And what Commander Oliva was reading is a wonderful thing. As you come up through the chairs, it's a 6 to 7 year process working through the district to become the state commander. So I see 160 something posts in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. 8164, Jimmy Williams and the Bedford and Mary at the Bedford VA all the time till they get shut down. Vinny with a Voice of Democracy, Patriot Pen, he's been running that for years. The things that this post does for their community is absolutely outstanding. And the state does recognize what they do, and as does national. So I'm not going to continue on. I do have a certificate I would like to present to the post, and sitting down here is not going to do it. It's a place where you stand up.
Please, wherever. You guys are the bosses, wherever you like, because after we also have a certificate that we would like to.
I have an outside voice, so I don't really need a mic.
Okay.
For the folks at home,
Oh, okay.
the mic is important.
All right. Is it on?
Yes.
Okay. That was kind of hard to do this. Vinny, you want to come over here, please? Okay, if I don't screw up the legalese on this. Veterans of Foreign Wars of the United States Diamond Jubilee Award, presented to Tewksbury Post, number 8164, Tewksbury, Massachusetts, mustered August 28, 1946. In special commemoration and grateful recognition of its 75 years of exceptional service to the nation and its veterans throughout, its 7 1/2 decades of dedicated support for the programs and purposes of the Veterans of Foreign Wars. In witness whereof, we have hereunto set our hands in the official seal of the Veterans of Foreign Wars of the United States, this 28th day of August, 2021. Fritz Mihalchek, Commander-in-Chief, Kevin Jones, Adjutant General.
Commander, please don't go too far. So on behalf of the board, Mr. Mackey is a 14-year veteran of the Army. Mr. Mackey.
Be it hereby known to all, the Board of Selectmen of the town of Tewksbury, Massachusetts recognizes and congratulates VFW Post 8164 in honor of the Veterans of Foreign Wars of the United States 75-year anniversary. Furthermore, thank you for serving and ensuring veterans are respected for their service and are recognized for their sacrifices. They are loved and that their loved ones, let this be known on their behalf for our great country. Given this 25th day of September 2021, signed, the Board of Selectmen. Thank you.
So what I'd like to do, we're going to take a 2-minute recess, just a 2-minute recess, please. All right, welcome back. Okay, for scheduled items, that was wonderful. That's going to bounce us to the residents section. Do we have any residents that would like to speak tonight? Just name and address for the record?
Evening, Steve Johnson, 21st Street. Again, for full disclosure, because I think I got caught the other night forgetting, I sit on the planning board. I am currently its chairman, but I appear here tonight as a resident and not on behalf of the board. The reason I came tonight, I know the board tonight will talk about the warrant articles. I know it's not a public hearing. That was done with the Finance Committee the other night, where I did appear as well. But I came last time when a similar article was put forth before the before the Board of Selectmen, so for consistency purposes, I came again this evening. I remain, as I did before, deeply concerned with this article being put forward. I would say nothing's changed since the last time, but that would be inaccurate because somehow the proponents of this article have managed to provide even less justification for this article this time around than they did the last. Your board has been given a significant amount of information, I believe, by me, just after town meeting. I believe at the time the board had seen they'd had an interest in looking into that information. This is why I provided it. I don't know what, if anything, happened with that after that between then and now. But this article's back, or I guess the current version of this article is back, so I'm raising the same concerns I had last time. I know it's the policy of the board not to take a position on resident articles. That's fine, but I feel like I should at least bring it up again. I put up a lot of numbers and a lot of information at the Finance Committee. I'm not going to bore everybody by going back over that again here tonight. As I said, you guys have had the exact same information for several months. So I'm not going to, if anybody's interested in what I put out, they can see it from the Finance Committee meeting. What I will say is that I think it's deeply concerning that an article that is going to, if passed, put us in a category with some of the smallest towns in the state of Massachusetts without any reason why it is that it's being put forward or any evidence that for the few reasons being given have any evidence to back that up. If anything, the evidence I provided contradicts what has been put forward, meaning, and one of the main reasons seems to be that they think there'll be more competition. They'll say it's not competition, it's access. I'm sorry, I just continue to disagree with that because access questions whether or not people can get on the ballot. I would think the town clerk would have issue with anyone who claimed they couldn't get on the ballot if they met the requirements. So it's competition they're talking about. And the evidence seems to be that that just doesn't do it. They've put forward some of the local towns as evidence. I put forward the same, which of the 20 towns above us, the 20 towns below us in population, for example, 4 do what the petition has put forward. That's it, 4 of them. And out of those 4, 2 of them are neighbors of ours, Bill Ricker and Chelmsford. Bill Ricker has had exactly the same number of competitive races as our planning board has in the last 7 years. So there's been no more competition by their 3-year term than our 5-year term. And Chelmsford, the crown jewel of my argument, and the one that I think should pretty much cause a huge problem for theirs, has had exactly 1 competitive race in the last decade with 3-year terms. Our own school committee has had exactly the same number of competitive races over the last 10 years as the planning board. And nobody's looking to shorten their terms to make for more competition. Clearly, there are other reasons for competition being down, if you feel it is down. I wouldn't dispute if you want to say that you want to have more competition, but there are reasons that you're not seeing it that are not the ones around how long you serve on the planning board in this example, because the evidence just doesn't seem to back it up. There's a lot of other things that need to be looked at. The reason I sent that information to the Board of Selectmen is because it's been my contention that this is something the Board of Selectmen should look at. If it's deemed to be something in the best interest of Tewksbury, fine. I have no problem with that. But that would be evidence-based. If the board were to bring that forward, I'd feel like, just like you did when you just put forward the ones to change the antiquated terms used to refer to people on your board. It makes sense. You see it as a problem. It's something that should be fixed. You put it forward. A lot of people would have looked at that as being a citizen petition issue. But clearly you saw it as something that needed to be dealt with, you brought it forward. I really feel that this would be something along those same lines, because as of now, the evidence just isn't there. You know, the proponents seem to be going with a political strategy of say little, prove less, and hope no one notices. I'm concerned that maybe people will not notice. This is not in the best interest of the 30,000 people who live in Tewksbury. This is being directed at the 150 people who have a habit of showing up at town meeting, and many of whom have issues with the planning board. I grant them, if they are upset with us, that is fine. I'm concerned with the idea of passing something like this out of irritation at decisions the board has made, and not for something that's in the best interest of the town, which is what I question here. For the little information that's been given, the little evidence that has been shown, almost no evidence that's been shown, to explain why. Why should we do this? You know, the only people who seem to be doing this, and that's part of their argument, is other people do it. The other people who are doing this are some of the very, very smallest towns in the Commonwealth. 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts. Less than 27% of them do this. And the majority, the vast majority, 75% of them have populations under 20,000 people. Some of those towns, just for a couple, and I'll finish up and get out of your way, but just remember, what you're being asked to join are towns such as Monroe, Mass., population 120, about the same number we have show up at town meeting. Heath, Massachusetts, population 706. Florida, Massachusetts, population 752, and according to their website, they only have one scheduled planning board meeting a year. It can't possibly be compared to Tewksbury. We have 2 a month, pretty much every month. And Petersham, Massachusetts, population 1,234. That's not Tewksbury. Those towns are not Tewksbury. There's a reason they can get away with having their boards set up the way they have them. It's not the same here. The business that this town has to deal with is not the same. And people should know that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, continue on residents, or any other residents that'd like to speak? And just name and address for the record, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Which mic is live?
I think both of them, but that one's good. It comes in.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, perfect.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Paige Impink. I'm one of the co-sponsors of Article 17, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak during the resident portion of the meeting. This article is something that actually the Board of Selectmen themselves have encouraged with respect to getting citizens more involved in our community. There are so many meetings that go by where the Board of Selectmen encourage people to join committees, to run for seats, to get involved. This is a great way to do it. I would say, why not do this article? The intent of the article is to create more opportunity, more often for residents to serve. Tewksbury is growing and changing, and creating space for people to share their expertise, vision, and energy will benefit the entire community. This article will phase in over time, and current members will serve out their terms. I'd just like to say we recognize that Planning Board Chair Johnson has provided you with some of his information. However, I would like to be clear that Mr. Johnson does not speak for the proponents of this article. He was not involved in the development of this article, nor in the research that the proponents did undertake in preparing this article. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other residents at this time? Please.
Chris Mullins, I missed that part. Which mic is?
Both of them, I think, are cool.
Can we do stereo?
Yep.
So Chris Mullins, 758 Whipple. So our outreach for this and our research has been going on for about a year up until this point, as far as reaching out and interviewing different planning boards, different administrative staff, all around the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. But prior to that year, it really started about 6 months prior to that, when we read about something called the incumbency effect. And I know I've got 5 minutes here, so I'm trying to give you the Cliff's Notes version of that. But for me, this is more data-driven than it is ideological. So the incumbency effect shows that when a single incumbent is up for re-election, the chance of having the incumbent run for re-election with no other candidate is pretty high. When multiple seats are up for re-election, more candidates typically run for these seats than there are seats. The higher number of seats up for election for a board at once, the higher resident interest and involvement. And I'm sure this might hit close to home as each select board member has had recent elections that fit into one of these categories. And when we reviewed the past decades of town reports and election results, it mirrored that as well. So this is not a fly-by-night thing. This is a year and a half, essentially, of research. So when more seats are open at a time and we remove barriers, more residents see that as an opportunity to get involved in the community. Something else that we see specific to Tewksbury is once somebody is involved in a board or committee, they typically either stay in that board or committee or spread their wings and join other boards of committees. So for me, this article is grounded in data, including the historical data of our town, including the data of the elections of the current Board of Selectmen and any board, truthfully. And, I see it as a catalyst to really up resident involvement in the town of Tewksbury. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other residents at this time? Okay, seeing that's okay. Thank you very much. And that's how government is supposed to work. You hear both sides, and ultimately, we'll take a vote on it next week. So thank you very much. All right, moving along to new business. Tewksbury Diversity, Equality, and Inclusion Advisory Committee. So what we're looking, I think we got a request from the superintendent, essentially just to add another member of the student faculty, the student body. So right now we have one particular member, like I said, that's a student, and the request was to open up for one more student on the particular board. I think it's, just to have essentially a girl, boy. So that's the extent of it, to have two representation. Is that correct, Mr. Motori?
That's correct. The superintendent reached out to me as well as the principal of the high school asking for an additional student representative to the committee.
Okay, fair enough. And Ms. Wellman, I think, are you the chair of this committee?
I'm the select board appointee to the committee.
Okay, so
and we'll
question?
organize once we meet,
Okay,
which will
very
be
good.
soon.
Any thoughts?
Well, it's interesting. We did not take into account gender as an issue for appointment, and I think that there's some concern around that. And my other concern was the pleasure of the board at the time that we made our appointments was not to exceed what we had originally done and to see how the committee came back and made an appointment. So I'm a fan of student participation and public participation in all processes, and these will be open meetings. But I am interested in what my fellow board members think about this option for this request.
Sure.
So I am amenable to the conversation.
Your ears are open. Okay. How about Ms.
Sure.
Stronach? Thank you.
So it did strike me that we were using gender to select for our diversity committee as well. What I would propose, because I too think that having a student voice would be important, what I would propose is that we have a second member of the school, but have them be an ex officio, and they could vote in the absence of the original, if the first person would not be able to be there, similar to what we did with the housing partnership in terms of when we were trying to get quorums. It is important that we have quorums in these meetings. This committee, I think, we did a lot of work on setting this up, and I think that there was a tremendous amount of thought into it. I would not be opposed to adding that type of a role if they were only allowed to vote when the other appointee was not present. And so they would have a backup. As we know, teenagers live very busy lives. And so it would be, I think, a way to make sure that we have one of those people, one of those students at every single meeting. So, but I am also open to others' opinions and don't have strong feelings one way or the other, except that we very much committed to the structure, and we've had this conversation a couple times for other add-ons as well.
Good deal. How about Mr. Mackey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also do not feel overly strongly one way or another on this. We did have at-length discussion about expanding the number of seats, and correct me if I'm wrong, question through you to Ms. Bowman, we haven't had a meeting on that yet, right?
That's correct. Yeah, we're still waiting for a couple of appointees, and yeah, we're getting organized for that first meeting, hopefully in the next week or two.
Perfect. Yeah, so my opinion would be, as it was for expanding it for other additional seats. Let's get some time under our belt, let's see what happens, and readdress if additional seats are required in the future.
Fair enough. Okay. And I feel the same way. I mean, to me, it's reasonable. It's just reasonable. But I think it would be a beautiful first agenda item for the committee to deliberate amongst the committee. So it's a good, so kind of, we're all saying kind of the same thing a little bit differently. So I have no issues either way. So with that being said, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, rather than offering a motion, I would ask that our representative on that committee bring this forward to her committee for deliberation and then bring back a recommendation for us to consider. And I would like it if we could also think about other options as opposed to just the additional member.
Okay.
Other options, I mean, like associate membership? Do you mean just
Or that-
about high
or
school
that
students?
Ex officio, whatever. I just feel like all of it should be open for discussion.
I think that's great. We can definitely do that. Not a problem. If we can ask through you, Mr. Chairman, to the town manager to liaise with the superintendent's office and extend the email addresses of the students that they are considering appointing, so they may, or the student that they intend to appoint to the committee, so that we can include that individual in our scheduling process.
Okay. I don't think we need that as a formal motion, but we do have a
No.
motion on the table by Ms. Stronach. So do I have a second?
She didn't make that in the form of a
I just
motion.
made that as a form of a request. I can make it in the form of a motion.
I think it's
if you
appropriate,
prefer.
please.
All right, I'll make that as a motion, that we have our appointee discuss it with her committee and bring back a recommendation to the board for consideration.
Okay, very good. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Okay, perfect. All right, next order of business is board correspondence. Paul's, please.
And when, if you could just please let the superintendent know of our action as well as providing the information. Thank you.
Definitely.
Sorry.
Okay, perfect. That's good, easy. Okay. All right, very good. Moving along to new business, board correspondence policy. So, Mr. Montori, just for the board, we talked about this a while ago, and we kind of tweaked it a little bit, but just for the residents, could you please explain kind of what this means and what we're talking about when we have this board correspondence policy, please?
Sure. So this policy was drafted some months back in collaboration with the board to ensure that correspondence that comes in addressed to the board as a whole, or the chairman, to the chairman for the entire board, that we include it in the board's meeting packet that gets uploaded to the website, as well as provided to the board for their meetings. This is a way of acknowledging correspondence that comes into the board, so residents know that the board has the correspondence. If it's not a resident, it could be information from the Commonwealth of Mass, federal government, a nonprofit group. It's a way of the board acknowledging receipt of it, and if the board chooses to discuss it at one of their meetings because the correspondence is part of their packet, or to want to take it up at a future meeting, it's there for the board to do that. So it's just a way of getting the information to the board and to the public that the board's received it, because many times we do receive information and follow-ups from the residents or groups asking, has the board seen it? Has it been provided to them? Is the board discuss it, take any action, are they aware of it type of thing.
Okay, so this evening, you're looking potentially for us to adopt this as a policy?
Yes, adopt it as a policy. If the board needs more time, that's fine, just to get it on the board's radar again, provide any feedback. If you're comfortable tonight, that's fine. If you want to take it up at one of your future meetings, that's fine, but I just want to get it back, as something the board should consider.
Okay, and I'll just open up to the board for questions or comments, and just for the residents. So at the end of the day, we do get a significant amount, I'm going to say, emails or requests. So some are tangible, some aren't tangible, where we might get a request that a power line down or a tree branch fell down. I'm just going to every extreme to a message about a particular committee. So we get from one end to the spectrum to the other as far as correspondence that coming in, and every email that comes in is essentially public knowledge. So the board talked about it. Which ones do we advertise? Which ones do we don't advertise? Because if we advertised everyone would just pretty much open our email boxes constantly. So some are worthy and some are not worthy. So Mr. Montori, keep me honest. This would give you, obviously you, the ability to add, myself the ability to add, but what about the board? That's the only thing. So if, just as an example, if Ms. Strana came saying, Jay, we had this email, I think it should be on a correspondence. Does the board also have input as to what should be included in, let's say, our packet? Or is it just you and I essentially?
I think the other board members should also, and we can add that to this, but if everything can be funneled through the chair, that just would help me, know that there's, it's gone through the chair of the committee.
Okay. And that was my only takeaway before I open up to the board. I think I'd like to give, like I said, I just run the meeting as the chair, nothing more, nothing less, so I don't have any additional power. So I think it should be spread across the board that if you do have an item that I might not consider, let's just call it noteworthy, or to advertise within the packet, that you send myself from Mr. Montori a note saying, hey, something, I think we should consider it. Because like I said, it's amazing the emails we get on a day to week to month basis where, like I said, some are tangible and not, again, we had nothing. It's always, anything is open subject to the public, but we typically don't advertise it. And this is a vehicle to start advertising that stuff, nothing more, nothing less. So, and I know we always say we care about Tewksbury first, but other towns have done this. And I think that's why kind of the ask has come into Tewksbury is how come you guys don't do ... and here we are. So I'll open up to the board. Questions, thoughts, concerns? Mr. Mackey.
I do have some concerns having read through this. I am a huge proponent of transparency, and I think this is good, but some of the verbiage in this does imply that every email that came in would go into the packet with some exceptions. If that were the case, the packet is public record, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. So if every correspondent is going in, kind of to your point earlier, that could make for some hefty packets. If something is going to be left out, there should probably be some clause on denoting why it was left out. So I think this is a great start, and I think we should absolutely do this. And I think this is great for transparency and informing our residents. But I think we should not take action on this tonight.
Okay, very good, thank you. How about Ms. Stronach?
Thank you. I had some similar concerns with regards to what actually makes it in there. I don't know if people should actually request that this be put into the agenda packet. I don't know if that's something we should consider. The other thing that very much concerns me is that we're putting these correspondence into our packet. But if somebody wants to discuss that as an agenda item, I think we should be noting that on our agenda, rather it just being in our correspondence. I think it should be added to the agenda, similar to the way we add agenda items. If I, as a member of this board, feel strongly about something and would like to have it discussed at the meeting, I take it to the chair, you discuss it with the town manager, and then it gets on the agenda. But I am concerned that if we're going to have this in our packets, and then we are speaking about it, we're not giving residents the opportunity who may have a varying opinion to also speak on it. And that's very concerning to me. And I worry about actually being able to be equitable in the way we're we're talking about this as a community, where we could just be kind of putting ourselves in a position where we're counteracting every single meeting for correspondence from different points of view. So I don't know how we address that, Mr. Montori, but I think if we are going to have them in as informational would be important, but if we're going to be discussing it as a board, I think it needs to be put on as an agenda item so that
Absolutely.
everyone has the opportunity to speak on whatever their issue is.
Great points. Okay, very, very good. How about Ms. Wellman? Thoughts?
Thank you. I think this is an important policy for this board to work toward and adopt. To your point, to my colleague's point, Mr. Mackey, toward transparency, what we're doing right now is kind of not transparent, and we can do better. And when someone sends an email to the entire board, it already is a public document, whether we put it in the packet or not. So it's already public. So by putting it in the packet, what we're doing is informing the community of what their neighbors are talking to the board about. And it opens some sunlight onto conversations. And it gives us an opportunity to say, here it is in the packet. We have heard from this resident. Maybe it needs to be brought up as an agenda item in the future, not necessarily in the meeting in which it's presented. It's food for thought. It gives other people in the community the idea or the understanding that an issue is actually an issue that other people are talking about and reaching out to the board on. And so therefore, maybe they should also add their voice to that conversation and indicate, yeah, there is something here that we should talk about, or maybe there isn't. We do offer a resident portion. This board has a very, what I would say, permissive and open and inclusive residents portion. We invite people to talk. We listen to them. I think we have a very proud and we're very respectful of our residents who come forward. We should continue that by including their correspondence in our packets and sharing that information. I think the town manager put some good language in here vis-a-vis items that should not be included and giving the latitude to say, this is a sensitive item and there's reasons that it shouldn't be included. This is, inappropriate, or there is, and those emails we get are few and far between. I think that one resident corresponding with one board does not make that a public document. And so if one resident receives an email, one board member receives an email from a resident asking, hey, do you know about how to follow up on this kind of an issue I need, which we get a lot of those kinds of requests as well, would not be eligible for inclusion in correspondence because it is not meant for the entire board, unless that individual said, please send this to the rest of the board. So I think that there's some caveats in there, and I think that we can clean that up to the board's satisfaction and answer the question that our colleague, Ms. Stronach, put forward vis-a-vis how to manage the agenda and give equity to people who want to have their voices heard on particular issues. But I do think it's very important for us to work this issue and bring this language forward and pass it. Because we do get really good ideas often as well, and also important concerns. And it's important for the rest of the community to sometimes hear those voices. We do often bring them forward on agendas. But I think the understanding in the public where the idea came from, what is the genesis, I think is also important to include. And those are my thoughts, Mr. Chairman.
I sense a table vote coming up, so I'll just be short and sweet. My, I guess, concern is, I say the word weaponize. Just because a resident brings something forward, number one, doesn't mean it's factual. Number two, doesn't mean it's true. So we have to be careful. I've been on the board for 5 years, and more times than not, you'd be surprised. They say the truth lies somewhere in the middle when there's parties involved. So I'm very nervous that, number one, some of the residents try to speak out, and then all of a sudden it becomes neighbor versus neighbor, very unhealthy. See what I mean? So that's an example where we see, and I've seen it all too often, where information is not right, it becomes weaponized, and all of a sudden we have a bigger problem on our hands to solve. So again, all good points, but I want to make sure that we help and the residents understand if they're going to bring something forward, that it's a public document. But again, I want a way to censor it, maybe vet it, because again, if we just can't take something and earmark it right to correspondence, you can only imagine if it's on the agenda, residents that come in, and I could see, again, I'm just using a likely scenario because we all live it on the board, and that's the last thing we want. We want residents to come forward, but in a way where it's right for the agenda, for the board, and for residents alike, if that makes sense. So,
Mr. Chairman, may I just comment, having been a member of the school committee, our school committee has put correspondence in their packet for as long as I've been involved with the school committee. So it's not really an issue on that side for some of the concerns that you're having. And so maybe we could mirror their process and sort of their policy for what is included might be useful. And I don't mean to interrupt your
all good,
comments, so,
all good.
yeah.
We're having this perfect, having a discussion. All right, so I think we talked about, to know the direction. So with that being said, what's the pleasure of the board at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to table this and ask that the town manager take into some consideration the comments that were made tonight and come back with an additional draft.
Okay, I have a motion, I have a second.
Second for discussion.
Please.
I will second the motion just to bring it back to a date certain. So if we can have this brought back in November, to our first meeting in November,
Sure.
does that seem
Is that
reasonable? Just
I'm not opposed to adding that to my motion.
Okay, perfect. So I have a
For the
motion,
amendment. Thank you.
and it's a friendly
amendment.
acceptance of the amendment. So I have a motion, I have a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, 4-0. All right, next order of business, special town meeting warrant articles. This is where the fun begins. So, if you recall, the Finance Committee already conducted a public hearing, so this is not a public hearing. And we did get some comments on the resident section, which was wonderful. So we have a special town meeting next week, October 5th, at 7 o'clock at the Tewksbury High School. So, Mr. Montori, without further ado, want to jump into the articles. Article 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Article 1 seeks to raise and appropriate $820,579 into various line items in the FY22 budget. The additional funds that we're raising are available to appropriate into the budget because of additional state aid that we received for FY22 once the state budget was complete. The net state aid increase was $166,375. We're also projecting additional new growth from the assessor's office that will provide an additional $658,000 that we're using for both Article 1 and 2. The items that we're seeking to increase in the budget are as follows. Treasurer Collector Professional Services, $10,000. We're seeking to fund payroll support and training for staff in the Treasurer Collector's office. Right now, we have one person, one payroll clerk handling payroll for the town, and school. The backup is actually the Treasurer Collector. We would like to get other people in the office trained. That means we need to bring in a private firm to do that training on Munis. We also need some support when people are on vacation until we get people trained in the office. Computer services full-time salaries, $45,000. Currently in the budget, we have $20,800 for a part-time individual to work in our computer services department. We would like to take that 20-hour per week person and create a full-time position this current fiscal year. The $45,000 will go towards that full-time position. The current part-time person is leaving us, so it will open up a vacancy that will fill with a full-time position. We're looking to have a salary range of $62,521 to $78,074. It'll be a personnel bylaw position, systems operator, grade 7. Also, under computer services, professional services, we're seeking to add $30,000 to the budget to fund cybersecurity needs for the community, for the town. The funds will be used to identify cybersecurity needs for the town's computer infrastructure and assist in ensuring monitoring of any cyber threats or attacks. And then finally, under treasurer unclassified interest maturing debt, seeking to appropriate $735,579. This money will go into debt service in the treasurer unclassified budget to be set aside to be used in the future if we move forward with the DPW/school maintenance facility. Right now, we have funds set aside in the budget for debt service for a new DPW school facility. We have approximately $835,000 set aside. This funding will be added to that debt service for principal and interest on a bond if we move forward with the project in May. Right now, we're planning to come forward in May town meeting for a project, but we haven't fully decided that until we review what the bidding climate is for a project such as this. Right now, due to COVID, the per square foot cost to bid a project like this is much higher than we originally anticipated. We hope the per square foot costs come down. We also hope that the ability to get materials and equipment for projects like this become easier, because right now there is a long lead time on such things, also adding to cost. And so if we feel that the environment has gotten better, we plan to bid this and bring something forward in May. If not, we'll put everything off till next October. So then this is just, again, a building block towards funding a DPW/school maintenance facility within the town's tax levy and not going for debt exclusion as we've talked about in the past. This will still have some work to do to get us within the tax levy, but again, this is setting the funds aside for the future and not committing to the project at this point. That will come at a future town meeting. So that's the article, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Want to open up to the board for questions? Let's start with, how about Ms. Wellman?
I only had one quick question, through you to the town manager. I just wanted to, vis-a-vis the cybersecurity needs in the town, does that $30,000 also include the premium with Maya for cybersecurity insurance?
No, that's already paid in another budget.
Okay, because it says insure, so I didn't know if you meant insure as in insurance or insure as in.
No, it should have been, that was probably spelled, that was spelled wrong.
This is why
Yep.
I don't mean to be a grammarian, an
No,
obnoxious
no, good
grammarian. I was
catch.
truly
No.
confused. Okay, thank you very much. That is my only question. I support the article.
How about Ms. Stronach?
I have no comment, and I, again, just want to say that I am thrilled that we are trying to achieve the DPW within the tax levy, and really applaud those efforts. I think it would be very difficult to go before the community with another override.
How about Mr. Mackey?
No questions, no comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, well, I have a couple here. I'll try to keep it a little bit brief. So, Mr. Montori, let's talk about the line item for allocating the DPW and school maintenance, $735K. So, just for the history, we allocated $2.2 million for the design in 2019. So that's already completed, meaning that $2.2 million is already used for the plan, design, and all that good stuff, correct?
Correct.
Okay, cool. Within the budget now, like you said, in October 2020, we allocated, let's roughly say $835K.
It was 853, actually. I misspoke earlier.
850, I had 855, good, 850, okay, 853, 853K into we voted that in October 2020.
No, you actually voted it this past May.
I mean, okay, this past May.
Yep.
Thank you, I had all my notes at home. So I guess the point is, right now, already allocated in the budget, if this did not pass, is the 853K.
Correct.
Okay. So if we earmark or allocate 735K, moving forward, roughly, we would have 1.5 million allocated for the principal and interest without the project even starting, correct?
That's correct. Now, the debt service to borrow funds for this project, and let's just use, if we borrow $30 million for the project is right now estimated to be $39 million. The hope is to use existing funds, whether some from the stabilization fund, some from water retained earnings, sewer retained earnings, other funds, and we get that amount down to $30 million to borrow. The debt service for that is over $2 million. So we still have some work to do to get us close. So that's why we're just setting this aside and still building those blocks to get there. Or bring the price down even further so the borrowing isn't as much as, say, and I'm just using 30 at the moment. If we get it down to 28, obviously the debt service is less.
Okay. So if this passes, and again, I probably used the wrong terminology, if this passes and we do nothing else for 5 years, essentially 1.5 million would be included in our yearly budget moving forward.
It would be included. It could sit there for 5 years.
So if we do the math after 2 years, that would be $3 million, and we can do the math, easy math, correct?
Correct, yep.
Okay, so I'm going to call it, so I get it, building a foundation. Have we done this in the past for any debt services?
No, everything's been done by debt exclusion, so it's been easier. This obviously has been more challenging, trying to build it within the budget, so we have it set aside. But to your point, Mr. Chairman, if we went a year or two without spending that money, those funds could be used to reduce the overall cost of the project, which would allow us to borrow that much less.
I get it. And I beat the drum. I said, we have 3 debt exclusions. I think that's probably kind of a record for 350 communities in the state, so I'm a little bit hesitant. Because I'm thinking, Mr. Montori, as far as priorities that I look through residents, again, this is just residents through me, not representing the board, of roads, number one, in Tewksbury, outside of 38, which is out of our control, which we're trying to make some leaders roads across town. And I always say, we hear a lot about increasing the police force, and speaking of the DPW, increasing the DPW workforce, because we know they can't get everything done that we need to do, especially around stormwater. I know we made a significant improvement there. So my point is, we already have 835 in the budget moving forward. And this 735K, I'm like, wait a minute, especially around roads. I mean, how many cops could that hire? How many DPW workers could we hire in lieu of this 735K that we're trying to position for the future, which I get it. Again, that's why I want to have the conversation. So, I mean, what would if I always say it's not a wish list, it's not wants, it's needs. So what would you think on maybe potentially outside of the DPW, our top needs in Tewksbury?
Yeah, no, sure. That's a great point, Mr. Chairman. We have, we have priorities in the community. From the administration standpoint, we do have priorities. We can't fund them all. This project is top priority at the moment. But if this project wasn't here today, our other needs and priorities would be a second full-time ambulance in the fire department. We would want to fund additional staffing in the police department to cover certain shifts. We would want to staff the DPW at a higher level than is currently staffed. From a now that's operating only.
Operating,
If you
first capital.
Separate, that's just the operating. That's not even including what the schools may need, because right now the schools are able to fund things that they normally wouldn't through COVID funds and other funds that they're getting from the federal government. That's not going to continue for into the future. So their needs with a new school opening will also be greater. From a capital standpoint, you mentioned it earlier, paving roads, top priority. We need to pave our roads. I know sidewalks are a priority for many of the residents in this town, but from the administration standpoint, roads are important. Sidewalks are important. So those are areas that we would focus on. Roads alone, you could spend, a few $1 million on roads easily on a yearly basis and still have a lot more to do.
Okay, very good. So I said my piece. That's why I'm questioning. I do believe, it's not a right or wrong. I was just thinking outside of the box a little bit differently based in lieu of kind of immediate needs, not wants, immediate needs, not wants. versus something we're looking, down the road. And I always say I'm a betting man, and I would, I would stand by. I don't see a debt exclusion being passed from the residents of Tewksbury, already having 3, because we talked about it. If we take away the sewer, the new fire station, and elementary school, what's up? Again, I don't want to put you on the spot, Mr. Montori, but for those 3 debt exclusions alone that are currently in place, any idea what those are in the form of a piece of the entire tax bill for residents per thousand?
Sure, give me 1 second.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I figured you have the information handy,
No,
per
this is
usual.
something we develop, Sean, pull it up. So, using the current debt service that we have, if you use the current assessed values for residential, commercial, industrial, personal properties, the current shift, the current percentages of values, the sewer debt, if you did not have it, the sewer debt that's on the tax levy is $3,587,000. That equates to approximately $263.89 on the average tax bill. The high school, which is a little over $2.1 million in excluded debt per year, is $159 on the average tax bill. And this is all based on, again, FY21 values. That's going to change when you set the tax rate. The elementary school is $341 on the average tax bill. The Wynn Middle School is $18. The fire station is $86. Senior center is $18. So the total for FY22 for debt exclusions is $882. In FY21, previous fiscal year, it was $909 on the average bill. It goes down each year because debt is declining. Now, just one other note, one other item that we've talked about in the past that's on the taxes is the CPA assessment, and that equates to $81.90 on the average tax bill.
Okay, so again, it's just
That's
my...
just residential. I have it for commercial too, and I'll send this to the board.
Okay, it's just my thought process, and I'm very likely to speak of this in the town meeting, just coming from a different perspective with these dollars, so thank you very much. Please, to the board, back to the board.
So, Mr. Chairman, I truly appreciate that analysis. And I just want to say that as somebody who's been heavily involved in the work down at the DPW, we do owe it to our town employees to provide them a safe working environment. And I do not believe that that building is going to be able to continue to be a safe place to work, especially if we are having to rent and house somebody for our school maintenance. So I hear what you're saying, but I do think that in terms of capital improvement, unfortunately, the town was all built at the same time, and we are lucky enough to be sitting on the board when things need to be rebuilt. So I just want to say that I hear that about the tax base, but I do think that it is important for us to have our employees work in an effective and safe building as well. And I am concerned about that building down there. And I just want to say that out loud because I think that that needs to be taken into consideration as well. I applaud the work that this board is doing to keep this from being a debt exclusion, because I do think that we cannot continue to go down that road. So I think by putting money aside in years when we have ESSER funding and those types of things help to make that a reality within the tax base. And I want to continue to press the town manager to do that within what we already have being taken from our residents in terms of taxes. So I just wanted to mention that as well.
And just to
I appreciate your points of view, though, really.
And right back at you, and just to comment, I said an inappropriate word, I think it was a bunch of meetings ago, I'll say it again, I've toured the DPW, and I called it a dump, I know it's a dump, but we have competing priorities And I do feel bad for the workers, you know, they go to work and roll up their sleeves, you know, and that's why I said I think that we need more workers. So, you know, I absolutely appreciate just multiple viewpoints here, and when I have these dollars, okay, you know what I mean? So I do get the fact that there's unequivocally no doubt that we need a new DPW and school maintenance building. Don't get me wrong. So, you know, but I am looking at just different, you know, everything from A to Z. So I made that for the public record. I know we need one, you know, but I'm just looking at things differently for the short term versus the near term, and that's what I'm supposed to do. So, okay. Any other questions, comments from the board?
Yes,
Please.
briefly, thank you. And I also appreciate your point of view. I know that it's shared by many, and yours as well. I concur that our DPW facility is inadequate, not just to our staff, but also to the equipment that we own, that we have a responsibility to maintain, that belong to our taxpayers and is for the benefit of our residents. I would also add, from a fiscal standpoint, the monies that are being appropriated here are kind of one-time monies, right? They're excess funds because we had revenues in excess of our budget. Is that correct?
For this particular article, they are being built into the budget, so they will be there year in and year out.
Year in, year out. Okay.
Unlike Article 4, where it's capital, those are more one-time.
Those were all done. Okay. I think that hiring individuals is a commitment to those persons, that we say, we're not going to take that money back and we're going to have those positions open, you know, for a long time. We're not saying we're going to hire people for a few years. If our budget situation changes, we can not appropriate this money in the future, and it's not cliff funding personnel. And so that's my concern. We're hiring personnel, is making sure that we can always continue to fund that. And for the example, the IT salary here, I know that's essential, and it's kind of small compared to the, you know, people that we would be hiring for DPW and police and fire. A second ambulance is also a really important thing that we need to be doing. But I think that this is a number that we can commit to, and it gets us toward our goals over time. So, and being able to fund this project within the levy limit and not doing a debt exclusion, I just don't see our residents being able to stomach that in the future. So,
Very good.
thank you. It's a good conversation.
Very good. Anything else from any other comments, questions from the board? Seeing none, what is the pleasure of the board on Article 1?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to recommend to town meeting adoption of Article 1.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes nay, so it's 3-1, so the article is recommended. How about Article 2, Mr. Montori?
Article 2 is a standard article we have at special town meeting to pay unpaid bills. These bills are invoices that came in after the fiscal year closed, and we need town meeting approval for them. We have 4 of them, totaling $3,795.71. Just quickly, the first is for police details for a DPW project for the town of Billerica that came in after the fiscal year closed. Priority Dispatch is a software license for our dispatch when it was at the police department. The invoice came in after the fiscal year for $2,244. WB Mason is for office supplies in the treasurer collector's office, and Comcast is the fiber line that is a backup for the town hall that we pay Comcast.
Questions, comments? Article 2? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to recommend adoption of Article 2.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Article 3, Mr. Montori.
Article 3 will be amended at town meeting to strike the words "or the stabilization fund." The article will seek to transfer $180,168 from certified free cash to fund the following items that are listed. Just briefly, there'll be a handout at town meeting, obviously, for explanations on all the articles, but in the document, there's a breakdown of how free cash and retained earnings were generated. This is already online for residents to access. But just briefly, free cash that was certified a couple of weeks ago at the end of fiscal 2021 totaled $4,720,482. Of that amount, as we have done for the last 5 or 6 years, we set aside $600,000 of that amount to address any snow and ice deficits we have during the year, because our snow and ice account historically has run into deficit because of the number of snowstorms that we have. We plan to use a portion of that $4,720,482 to fund Article 3, and then the remaining amount would go into we're asking to put into the stabilization fund in a couple of articles after this. Hopefully, all of them pass, and that'll give us an opportunity to put some money aside for future projects. But for these projects in particular, library carpet, $65,000. Funds were appropriated several years back in the amount of $25,000 for carpeting at the library. The project was put on hold until we evaluated other needs in the library for carpeting. The Director of Facilities has done that, and the plan is to use this funding plus the 25 to install carpeting at the entrance foyer at the library, the children's room, the teen space at the library, offices, the elevator, the employee entrance, and part of the first floor. So that funding will be used for that purpose. Police station renovations, $43,790, will be used for technology upgrades in the roll call room. This is the beginning phases of many upgrades to that room. It hasn't been upgraded since the building was built. The plan is to upgrade the audiovisual technology within the roll call area. And this funding is based on a quote they received from Delphi Technologies, who handles their IT. Boiler at the Center Fire Station, $49,878. The boiler at the Center Fire Station failed this past month. Even though the Center Fire Station, a new fire station is being built and the fire department will be moving out in December, they still will be there on a 24/7 basis from now until the end of December at least. So a boiler will be needed. After they leave, we're planning to move the school maintenance operations into the Center Fire Station until a new facility is built for them. Currently, they rent space off of Washington Street, so this will allow the town and the schools obviously to save money on a lease. We're also looking to use some of the space at the Center Fire Station to house school administration as a possibility, because the center school will be demolished in May as part of the elementary school building project, and from May until at least October, we'll need space for the school administration. They will look to utilize existing space in other schools, but that won't be enough. So we're looking to use the Center Fire Station to be temporary space for school administration. Hence the need to replace the boiler, even though the building down the road will be vacated. The company that's installing the boiler has indicated to us that once we're ready to demolish the building, they would be interested in purchasing the boiler back somewhere in the vicinity of $10,000 to $15,000, depending on how many years the building is still occupied. We'll also look to utilize the boiler in other buildings we may have that may be in need of a boiler if something comes up down the road. Other than that, the other two are pretty straightforward. We have a deputy fire chief retiring in January, and we'd like to do a civil service sanctioned assessment center to hire the next deputy. The fire rescue vehicle, when we actually got pricing on the rescue vehicle, it came in higher than we estimated. Town meeting appropriated $190,000 for the vehicle, and we actually need another $12,000 based on the pricing that were received. And that is it.
I love the thought process. I saw that during the FinCom meeting about the reuse of the boiler. So you're just thinking what we can do with it. So that was a really good thought process. All right, questions, comments from the board?
I'm none. It's good.
See none? I think, Mr. Montoya, I'm going to call it the last money article. I could be mistaken, but typical question, if these do pass, What's the average increase for, and if you don't have it, that's fair, but what would be the average increase if the money articles passed to the resident? Again, assuming the housing, Proposition 2.5 and the housing doesn't go up compared to 2021.
Yeah, so for this warrant, for the money we're raising and appropriating in this warrant only, it's around $45 to $50 to the average house bill. When I projected the overall budget increase back in January, for the whole budget increase, it was approximately $198. That may have been on the high side. It depends on where the values shake out. For instance, we had a lot of new growth, higher new growth than we estimated, but much of that is in personal property, so the percentage of personal property may bear most of that. So for this warrant, for the warrant we have in front of us, it's around $45 to $50.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Any other questions, comments for Article 3? Please, Mr. Mackey.
Mr. Chairman, through you to the town manager, I didn't catch this on my first pass. I noticed that for the stabilization fund. So is it more likely that this comes out of free cash, or?
This will come out of free cash. We will amend the article to delete all the stabilization fund.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to recommend adoption of Article 3.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second that.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous, 4-0. Mr. Montori, Article number 4.
Article number 4 seeks to transfer $150,000 from water retained earnings to fund engineering services for the inspection, repairs, and painting, as well as other improvements to the Astle Street tank. Right now, we're in the process of working with cell carriers regarding antennas they have on the Astle Street tank. You may know that those antennas are on the catwalk leading up to the tank. It's become very unsafe. We've been working with the carriers to get those antennas and put them on the top of the tank in a corral. They've agreed to do that. They will pay to do that. It's not going to be a cost to the town. The town will still get revenue and rent from the carriers. But in addition to that, after going through this process with the carriers, we also know that the Astle Street tank, which is a 1 million gallon steel tank built in 1970, hasn't had any exterior painting or has been reviewed since 2000. So we want an engineering firm to do two things for us. Make sure that the carriers are doing work properly when they move the antennas to the top of the tank, as well as giving us evaluation of what needs to be done for the tank in regards to painting and any other work. And that's coming out of retained earnings for water. And just quickly, water retained earnings that was certified at the close of fiscal 21 was in the amount of $2,421,795, and funding will be taken out of there.
Questions from the board? Okay. I just have one, Mr. Montori. Is this Article 4 here in any way, shape, or form tied? We recently had a non-compliance for the water quality in Tewksbury. Is this article 100% independent?
No, this is totally separate. That had to do with testing of the water that's coming out of the Merrimack River, the problem with the high TTMs account that brought us over the threshold, really had to do with the quality of water in the river due to the heavy rains. There is some impact, there has been talk about some impact from wastewater coming from the Lowell treatment plant area, but when I met with the chief operator of the plant the other day to discuss the issue, it really has come down to the heavy rains that we got this past summer that have really been the impact to the Merrimack and to the Concord. The Concord also flows into the Merrimack. The Concord is a problematic river. So that just the season we had has caused us a problem. We haven't seen something like this for over 10 years, so it's unique for us. But because the treatment plant was upgraded not too long ago, approximately $13 million upgrade, we have the ability to make adjustments and properly treat the water, and we're doing that. We're bringing in a firm to ensure that we have the proper balancing and techniques to address it. So obviously, we're taking it very serious, and we're addressing the issue. It's totally separate.
Okay, very good. I could see a resident ask. And last but not least, we mentioned earlier in Article 1 about the 735K being set aside for the DPW. So obviously, just on the topic of water, it is our most, without water, we're not here. I think we can all agree on that. So I think I put roads, and we talked about adding police and potentially DPW staff as well. How about from the water side? I think we have poured in a ton of dough over the last bunch of years. But are you comfortable just thinking out loud with the technology we are, with our water systems? Because again, I'm just thinking about dollars where they can be prioritized and just top of mind, I guess.
So from a water treatment standpoint, I think we've done very well. As I mentioned, we upgraded the plant to improve all of our treatment facility operations. So the plant, I believe, is in very good shape. The unknown for us is like anything else. We don't know what the regulatory world's going to do. We don't know what type of requirements are going to be imposed upon us in regard to treatment, and what permit requirements we'll have in the future to meet certain levels for treatment. That could be a game changer in any area, whether it's treating for the issues we're having now, whether it's treating or addressing PFAS issues, which we don't have any. But all of those are unknown. But right now, I believe our treatment is in very good shape. Distribution, which is everything that leaves the plant and our water pipes. This board has really done a great job leading in that area, allowing for the money we receive from the federal government to go towards water projects, a little over $9 million. And that'll go a long way. But we have, as the board knows, many miles of road that still have inadequate water pipes underneath it that we need to address. So once we spend this $9 million over the next year, a couple of years, we'll need to get back to spending $2 million a year to address water distribution.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Perfect. What's the pleasure of the board? Article 4.
I make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we recommend adoption of Article 4.
Can I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mackey. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous for adoption. Article 5, Mr. Montori.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Article 5 seeks to transfer $3,940,314 from certified free cash into the town stabilization fund. This essentially is the balance of free cash after we address out the capital article in Article 3 or 4, 3, and set aside money, $600,000 for possible future deficits in snow and ice. This $3.9 million will be added to a stabilization fund balance of $7,188,996, bringing our total to $11,316,433. These funds could be used in the future for any emergencies that may occur, any one-time expenditures, and very likely to be used to help reduce the cost of the DPW school maintenance facility in the future. By putting it into the stabilization fund, it will be in the fund, collect its own interest that stays with the fund, but also it gives town meeting a great deal of oversight because it's a 2/3 vote to come out of the stabilization fund. It's not just a simple majority. That should give town meeting members a comfort that they'll have a great deal of say and oversight of the use of the money. I do want to say, because Anne Marie knows better than me because she was here before me, when I first got here, the stabilization fund had around $500,000 in it. So the town's done a very good job building this rainy day fund because we know from past experience, and we had a scare when the pandemic hit, that revenues can drop very fast and you need a place to go to help you get through at least a year or two. This is very good news for the town, and it puts us in a position to address major issues such as a DPW school maintenance facility without having to take on another debt exclusion.
And just to highlight your point for the residents, by transferring the town stabilization fund, we're making more pennies on interest because of the trust fund as opposed to leaving the general free cash fund, correct?
That is correct.
Important to note. Okay, very good. Questions, Article 5? It's a pleasure on the board. Oh, Mr. Mackey, please.
Just a comment to expand on your comment, Mr. Chairman. Not only is it going to gain interest, but as Mr. Montori said, I believe one of the most important parts is it takes that 2/3 vote. So it puts more power in the residents. They have more say in where that money's used.
Good call. Perfect. Article 5.
I'll make a motion to recommend adoption of Article 5.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous, 5-0. Article 6, Mr. Montori.
Article 6 seeks to transfer $110,000 from Community Preservation Fund undesignated reserve to be used to improve drainage at State Field at Saunders Recreation in Livingston. For those of you who've been down to Livingston, or all of us who've been down to Livingston, it's the field across from the playground and baseball fields. It's next to the lacrosse field, and it's a field where there's a cricket pitch and where the youth football practices and uses. That field does not drain at all. When we have a moderate to heavy rain, we can have standing water there for days, backing up schedule of sports and events. So the facilities director, along with the town engineer, have come up with a plan to improve drainage in that area of the football field and the cricket pitch. The cost of the project is $10,000. It's approximately $50,000 to address the drainage, which would be to put in drainage pipes to drain to an outfall, include crushed stone and loam and sod, and then $50,000 to actually lay the drainage within that area. So we've received prices from a drain layer, from a landscaper, and if this is approved, we'll take this project on in the fall.
Very good. Sometimes I hear to that as a second-grade swamp down there, so it's so overdue, everyone knows it's. And it's a gem down there, too, between the cricket and the football and the field hockey and all of the above, so. Questions on the board, comments? What's the pleasure of the
Make a
board?
motion, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna, go ahead, Jane.
I was just going to make a motion to recommend adoption.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Article 7, Mr. Montori.
Article 7 seeks to transfer the parcels listed to the Tewksbury Conservation Commission to be held under their care and custody and control for conservation purposes, for the promotion and development of natural resources, and for the protection of the watershed in the town of Tewksbury. This is an article we've had at past town meetings from the Open Space and Recreation Committee, listing parcels that have been identified in the Open Space and Recreation Plan that should be protected for either conservation designation or recreation designation. These parcels are all being asked to be designated for conservation use. Just as a note, all of these parcels were sent around to all of the departments to make sure there's no need from a town standpoint, and there is no department that needs them.
Okay, very good. This is always a good article, Article 7. Questions from the board? What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to recommend adoption of Article 7.
Motion by Ms. Wellman, do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, 4-0. What's next, Mr. Montori? What do we have? Article 8.
Article 8 is a standard article to authorize the Board of Selectmen to grant an easement to National Grid for the wires and cables and conduit coming across town property. In this particular case, it's for the solar facility at Sutton Brook landfill. The board has granted temporary access, and we've discussed permanent access, but in order to have permanent, we need town meeting approval.
Questions, comments, Article 8. It's the pleasure of the board.
Make a motion to recommend adoption of Article 8.
I have a motion.
Second.
And a second by Ms. Wellman. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's 4-0. Article 9, Mr. Montori.
Article 9, again, another standard article seeking authorization by town meeting to allow the Board of Selectmen to sell parcels of land. The land that we're seeking to sell have been requested to purchase by abutters. The land will be sold in accordance with our town bylaw. And these are the parcels that abutters have requested. We recently completed a fairly large land sale from previous town meetings that we're finalizing the purchase and sales and new deeds, but the town took in some very good money from the land sales over that past week, and this will just be added to it.
Questions from the board? I know this is a standard one. Sometimes we do get questions on how to determine, but it's typically, Mr. Montori, just for the residents, because like I said, this one's always you guys are in the business of selling land, but maybe go a little bit deeper as to how we get to these two parcels here.
So we really don't promote selling town land unless someone has come forward as an abutter and seeks to purchase it and request to purchase it. There are a couple instances where we've promoted it, but for the most part, it comes from abutters who want to add. They have a small parcel of land they want to add to it, put an accessory use on, like a garage, or they're already taking care of it, so they want to add it to their lot. So that's part of the requirement, that they have to merge it with their lot. They can't just split it. But it's all abutters seeking to purchase it, so it's residents of the community just looking to add to their parcels. We evaluate it just to make sure that it makes sense. We evaluate it to make sure that there's no other use by the town. In instances where we found that it's a buildable lot and want to hold it for, say, affordable housing, we have done that too. But when we've looked at it and found that it makes sense to sell it to the abutter, we've brought it forward.
Okay, very good. I think that's important for the residents to understand. All right, very good. Questions, comments, Article 9? What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I will make a recommendation to approve Article 9 as presented.
A motion for Article 9 to adopt, right?
Adopt,
Yep.
recommend adoption, yeah.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Second.
Can I have a second? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous 4-0. Article 10, Mr. Montori.
Article 10 is an update to the groundwater protection district in the zoning bylaw. This is something that was updated and added to the rewrite of the entire bylaw this past May. But when it didn't pass, we had discussions with US EPA and Mass DEP to pull that and the map out of the bylaw that was proposed to be changed and bring it forward at this October town meeting. The reason for that, we needed to do that in order to be in compliance with the consent decree for the closing of the Sutton Brook disposal area. Essentially what this does, it provides institutional controls to the groundwater protection district in the area of the Sutton Brook landfill. It has restrictions for people who are in the zone in regards mostly to adding wells to their property. Those that are in the buffer zone, if they want to add a well, will need or want to do anything that is within this bylaw, they'll need EPA and DEP approval. But it really just restricts that area around the Sutton Brook landfill closure area. Just because it is in line with this, Article 11 actually has the map of what the area is that we're restricting, so they both go together. We did send letters out to abutters of this area several weeks back to let them know that this bylaw was taking place, letting them know what the changes to the groundwater protection district were, telling them that they can call us with any questions. I think Steve, Assistant Town Manager Steve Sadwick received one. He addressed it, but we haven't received any other input or comments.
Okay, very good. And I'm sure the abutters might, if they do come forward, to be in front of town meeting. But yeah, this one kind of threw some folks for the loop, residents were under calls, but it's a safety thing. Don't build a well where it's potentially contaminated the last 100+ years. And like you said, Article 11 is essentially the diagram of the buffer. So they're kind of tied in, but I think we'll take each article separate. So, questions on Article 10?
I just have a question. How many abutters are around there?
I have to go back. If
That's okay. You can get it to me later. I was just curious.
Yeah, it's a fair amount. Yeah.
I would imagine. So that's my point.
It's so important.
Just that one, I really appreciate you taking that extra effort to do
Yeah.
that.
And usually
And
it's
just
also-
have one come forward, thank you.
in this article, I mean, it's coming from, it is a zoning
Coming from
bylaw. I
us.
think it was voted unanimous for the planning board as well.
Correct.
So I mean, we can vote on it. Sometimes we take a recommendation to defer to the planning board because of the zoning, but for this one here, I think it's a little bit unique.
And it's from the town.
This came from us.
Town manager, that's why it's
So-
unique. Yep. So with that being said, what's the pleasure of the board for Article 10?
Questions?
Oh, please, please.
What are the implication, question to the town manager through you, Mr. Chairman? What are the implications or what happens after if this were to not pass?
So if it didn't pass, I'm sure I'd be getting a call from the EPA region the next day, and, we could be out of compliance with the consent order. They could fine us, but I'm not going to say they're going to fine us. They'll give us more time to regroup and try to bring it back for another town meeting.
Perfect, thank you. I asked because we know that the zoning bylaw, especially with the rewrite going on, is a hot topic. So people asking why this specifically was taken out.
Yeah, and that was a reason, when this started over a year ago, and with EPA and DEP, we've been talking for quite some time, but we asked them to be patient with us because we were rewriting the zoning bylaws. It was included in the package. We didn't want to break it out at the time, and they agreed to wait.
Perfect, thank you.
Good. Any other questions on the board?
No, just to echo the comments that it is such an important piece to pass. So, and, the planning board has already recommended adoption as well, so.
Mr. Chairman, I believe we sent out about 70 letters.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great.
All right, what's the pleasure of the board? Article 10.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we recommend adoption to town meeting.
Have a motion, have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, this signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous 4-0. And that leads us into segue for Article 11. Again, that's just the zoning, if you would. Zoning, that's
Yep, I would make a motion to recommend adoption of Article 11.
Have a motion, have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, signify
Aye.
by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. That brings us to Article 12.
Article 12, Mr. Chairman, just changes the terminology of Board of Selectmen to Select Board, and these are the articles brought forward to the board, by the board prior to the warrant being closed. The Article 12 changes the terminology within the charter and seeks authorization to petition the Massachusetts General Court to make the changes to the charter, to change the term Board of Selectmen to Select Board, and to change reference of Board of Selectmen to Board and Chairman to Chair.
Okay, very good. And this is kind of like consists of Article 12, 13, and 14, so.
13 is the same thing, but it changes the general bylaws, and 14 changes the zoning bylaws.
And just for the residents, again, town charter, general bylaws, and zoning bylaws, and the zoning bylaws do apply. I always say the planning board is essentially, and that's their jurisdiction. And last evening, the planning board voted to adopt Article 14 unanimously, again, because they're responsible for the zoning bylaw piece. So, questions from the board? Okay. Just for me, I'm just going to say I am in favor of this. I always say I don't want to be a hypocrite, but I'll just give you two examples in life. I tell my kids to go to bed early, and sometimes I break the rules. And if they get the sniffles, I send them to the hospital. So the reason why I'm saying I'm a hypocrite, I thought this should have potentially come from the residents and not necessarily the board. Again, I'm in favor of it, but that's why I'm kind of a hypocrite. This one here, I think it's easy. I think it's a no-brainer. But then the other question from residents is, what's next, ... What's next coming from the board? Cancel culture is, put on any channel, you're going to get it. So I am in favor of it. That's why I think this one's a no-brainer. But I think a lot of the concerns from residents is what's next, and why are you as a board, pressing this on the community? And I said, that's why we have town meeting. Come and vote. That's why we have town meeting. So again, I wanted to share that I am for it. I just thought it was more appropriate potentially to come from a resident outside of the board. But again, it's neither here nor there, so. Questions, comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I would just remind the board that about a year ago, we did receive a letter in correspondence from a resident who requested this change. So she did not take any further action on it at that time to bring it forward to Maytown meeting, and so that's when I brought it forward
Okay, very
over the
good.
summertime.
Very good. What's the pleasure of the board for Article 12?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to recommend adoption of Article 12.
Have a motion, have a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. 4-0 unanimous. Article 13, again, same verbiage, this is just for the general bylaw?
That's correct. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to recommend adoption of Article 13.
Have a motion, do I have a second? Second. Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. 4-0. And Article 14, zoning bylaw changes.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to recommend adoption of Article 14.
Have a motion, do I have a second? Second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, 4-0. Article 15, Mr. Montori.
Article 15, Mr. Chairman, is seeking approval to accept Robbie Terrace Way as a public way. The board held a public hearing on this and approved the layout and accepted it as a public way. The town engineer has approved the layout, and the planning board has also approved the acceptance.
Questions, comments, Article 15?
I would just like to note that this is being brought forward by Mr. Joseph Liberty.
And again, I think
It's the
the,
citizen petition article,
Yes?
so he'll be presenting it at town meeting.
We hope
Yeah, that's why I'm.
You should be, yeah, exactly. Okay.
someone on his behalf will probably be doing it.
what's the pleasure of the board? Article 15.
I would defer to take no action on this as is a citizen's petition.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
A second for discussion. So when the board takes a vote of no action, rather than actually just taking no action, like not making a motion and just letting it lie.
No recommendation?
Yeah, it actually is a negative motion in town meeting parlance. If you make a vote to make a motion to take no action, it's actually a motion to kill the item on town meeting floor. So I wouldn't recommend that we take no action. I would just take no action.
That's
That's where you're getting at, yeah.
That's what I'm.
That's what you
trying to
get. Okay, yeah. So I wouldn't
Thank you
take
for
that in the
being
form of a motion.
parliamentary. Yes.
Sorry to be, again, an obnoxious parliamentarian.
Haven't we done this before?
We
where-
have. Yes, you're absolutely correct. We have. And I went back and I looked in town meeting time because I'm an obnoxious parliamentarian. What can I say? So, as your former town moderator, I don't think we should take a vote to take no action. I think we should just not take any actual action.
And keep me honest here, Mr. Montori, but I think the board, the planning board voted approved outside to get this on the article. They approved it via a planning board meeting, and the select board also
Correct.
approved this some ways back.
Correct. Yep, within the
Okay.
last month.
Okay, well, okay, so what's the pleasure of the board? Just a level set?
Do nothing.
Bring it to town, it'll go to town meeting.
Go to town
Town
meeting.
meeting will decide.
Okay, so we don't need to take a motion? I think that's kind of the first, but I'm not opposed to it.
It's up to the board.
Well, there you
Given
go.
what our former town moderator, who I.
If you look at the back of, yeah, I think it's actually in the directions.
That's fine. I'm
Yeah.
happy to just refer this to town meeting. How about if I take a motion that we defer this to town meeting?
Perfection.
And again, just for the history for the residents, I mean, we often do that. I guess it, it could come across as negative, but when a resident brings something, who are we to say yay or nay? We want it to go. That's the exact process. So, all right, fair enough. So we have a motion to essentially
Defer to town meeting.
defer to town meeting.
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye, unanimous. Article 16.
It's a petition article, Mr. Chairman, from a resident to create a do not knock registry for door-to-door solicitors and canvassers. If someone doesn't want to have a door-to-door solicitor or anyone canvassing a neighborhood come to their door, they would sign up for a registry. We would keep a list in town and provide it to anyone who comes in for a permit. But it is a citizen's petition.
Okay, thank you. It's a pleasure of the board.
I would defer this to town meeting as well.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
4-0. And I think Article 17.
Article 17 just changes the term of the planning board from 5 to 3 years. It's a citizen's petition also.
We're well aware of this one as well. What's the pleasure of the board?
I would defer this to town meeting as well.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second by Mr. Mackey. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous for all, and I think that concludes special town meeting.
Thank
All
you.
right, very good. All right, moving on later. Mr. Montori, the floor is yours. We're going to move the town manager. I think we have one or two items on the town manager.
Actually, I think I just have town council's invoice for August, from August 16th through August 31st in the amount of $3,060, and I would recommend approval.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
I have a motion, a second by Ms. Wellman. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous 4-0. Anything else on your side, Mr. Montori?
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman. I think that's enough for me.
We have no minutes, so let's jump the board member reports. How about Ms. Wellman?
Very briefly, Mr. Chairman, two things. We have two events taking place on the Common this weekend. On Saturday, October 2nd. The first is Cleanup Day. They'll also be doing off-rim tire collections from the Central Mass Mosquito Control Project, accepting food donations and clothing and accessory donations for the benefit of the Epilepsy Foundation, plus awesome cleaning up around town. Very fun public event. The community really gets involved. We get more volunteers every year, and that is sponsored by the Beautification Committee. And the second thing is the Show Your Pride Tewksbury event. This was a Pride event, rally that was originally slated for June, but got rained out multiple times. All are invited and welcome to come, and that will be at 2 p.m. on the Common. And that is all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Looking forward to Saturday. The weather looks like it's going to hold up, so that should be,
Right.
that should be cool.
Finally.
Very good. How about Ms. Stronach?
First of all, I'm disappointed that I can't attend the cleanup on Saturday due to a family commitment, so my apologies for that. With that said, I would like to big shout out to the participants of last Saturday's event down at Livingston Field put on by the events committee. They just did a tremendous amount of work. It was a beautiful day. It was very well attended, and I would just like to thank Alex Lauder, Moira, Dennis, Julie, and Lynn, especially calling them out for their tireless efforts to make that such a wonderful event, and the town manager's office, as well as the police and the fire department to make that event, and everybody who participated, lots of community organizations as well as vendors, so it was just really wonderful. And again, the weather was unbelievable. So I don't know who did that, but I really appreciated it. The Tewksbury Elementary Building Committee has their next meeting on October 14th, but we have been given some responsibility to the athletic field in the field house as part of that project, and that has been turned over to the town. So that is now our responsibility. As you may remember, this project is done in very specific phases, and the first phase was the athletic field. I've gotten many questions from residents. Why did we do that first? Well, we needed to move that to put the school building, and we also needed it to, so that our athletes can perform. I live very close to that. I actually abut it, and it is wonderful noise that I'm hearing out of that facility. I've heard soccer, I've heard football, and it's just really great to see that being used for all different types of events. So I'm excited about that. And that is all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. How about Mr. Mackey?
Short and sweet, Mr. Chairman. Looking forward to cleanup day. Hope we get more participation than the amazing turnout we had at the last one.
Okay, perfect. And just a few closing notes. The reuse committee, we're actually going to have them in tonight, but with the warrant articles, we're actually going to have the reuse committee in October 19th, our next meeting. And I do want to thank Mr. Montori and all the department heads. We flew through the handout tonight, but we know this is such heavy lifting between the additional handouts and everything. It's not an easy lift, and you make it look very easy with your department heads. And I appreciate the conversation. That's what we're supposed to do. You know, that's why we have 5 different minds on the select board and all different boards, is to contribute differently. So a healthy discussion, and that kind of my segue into come to special town meeting, October 5th, 7 o'clock, because it's easy to talk to us, to get insight, but it's amazing if I had so many folks that would come to town meeting as opposed to just use this. I think the turnout would be really cool and special. That's what it's supposed to be all about. So thank you, Mr. Montori, for pulling it together. Looking forward to a healthy discussion on the town meeting, and that's all I got. So I look for a motion to, anything on your side, Mr. Montori?
I'm all set, thank you.
I look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion and I have a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you very much. Thank you.